Tank Dell. Let's get to Tank Dell. And I know you guys all know that Aaron Wilson had tweeted this the other day, that Texans wide receiver Tank Dell is off to an encouraging start and a speedy recovery from a broken fibula. Back running with his private coach, Delphonte Diamond. He's way ahead of schedule, hasn't missed a beat. He'll be more than ready when OTAs jump off. Got a little bit of codicil to that coming up. But as far as when Delphonte Diamond tweeted out this video, I thought I had to triple check that this wasn't a video from last year. Remember, there was a video circulating of Tank Dell, and it's actually him from last year. This is Tank Dell looking frankly, obnoxiously fast, doing a bunch of drills that I'd tear 17 groins if I tried to do anything. But a lot of, I'd like to call this the ankle breaker. I would call that the typewriter. I would call this next drill the black and white Wayne Gretzky. Just looking freakishly fast and in ways that, honestly, my first thought when I watched this was typically when you see guys with that much motion, it's kind of like Jerry Jeudy, they're not actually getting anything accomplished. It's just a whole bunch of chicanery that good defensive backs don't fall for. The thing with Tank Dell is that he defies physics, and it's really cool to see him with his healed fibula doing that. This is a little bit of a buzzkill before we get to a bunch of Tank Dell sound and highlights, just to remind you of exactly like honestly how freakish he is. It's astounding. And I watched them all last season, as did all of you. And I still in watching these montages back to back, it's so weird. But here's our friend Nick Cassari, who's having a hell of an offseason, reminding us to just maybe pump the brakes a little bit. This is an old thumbnail I used just so you could look at something while he's talking.
Reading, too much into any sort of commentary or what's going on with a player. I would say certainly Tank, he's making progress. And ultimately in the spring, it was about doing what we feel is best for each player. But, Tank's been here every day. Tank's working hard, so he's making progress. So taking it one day at a time. But you're certainly headed in the right direction.
So he says, careful about reading into any reports that you see. And this was right around the time we saw the report from Aaron Wilson that he's ahead of schedule. I think, and I've told you guys this, I think that Tank Dell is probably doing fine and on schedule, but they want to be sure that they take it easy with him. Like Tank Dell completely and totally strikes me as the guy that needs to be protected from himself. He's like the werewolf that needs to be locked up so he doesn't hurt himself or anybody because he wants to be out there. He's got the most congenial chip on his shoulder I've ever seen. Because I think there is something that drives him just in being so much smaller and probably discounted and underestimated his entire life. But he never really lets it show outwardly. He just shows with that viciousness that when he runs his routes, and when he tries to block dudes on the goal line that I don't think were his guys to block, he's that guy. So he was on with Drew Doherty on Texans All Access, and Drew Doherty did a good job with him. First asked him, how's the offseason going for him? And I added some Tank Dell highlights here for try not to tear a retina watching these.
Yeah, it's been going great. I've been hitting the road full speed, great recovery. I'm giving all the props to our training staff and our strength staff. They've been getting me on the right road, right tracks, and I feel like I'm back ready, man. So, I'm just waiting on, the lights to shine again and us to go out there as a team and go complete the mission. So.
That was a touchdown. Sorry, I cut that a little bit earlier. He made it all the way in. Next question, how important is it that the training staff helps out with the mental side of recovery? Not that Tank Dell is struggling with mental health issues or anything, but it's just that long recovery process, setbacks, all of that stuff.
Keeping me motivated, telling me that like me being myself, I already know that I'm going to come back 100%. I'm going to come back ready to do what I got to do to be the best I can be, but them telling me I'm gonna come back 100%, that's just nothing but fuel to the fire, motivation. And, they've been doing a great job, man. From mental, I have, Dylan, DT, I got him with me, so he's been doing a great job with helping me stay mentally focused, mentally locked in, and, knowing I'm going to go through some tough days, some great days, just staying level-headed, never get too high, never get too low. But the mental part, I'm all right with the mental part. I always keep God on my side. I pray every night, go to church, and I'm high on my faith. I stay strong in my faith, so I already know that I'll come back, even stronger, even better.
Okay, I failed. I'm having a hard time paying attention. Did you see what I'm talking about? What the hell, man? Oh my God. Oh, they got to keep this kid healthy. Oh my gosh. It's supernatural. So a couple things there. One was that play against the Bengals when he took those 3 hits as he hit the goal line. And remember too, wasn't it the Bengals game? Yes, it was the Bengals game where earlier he'd almost gotten murdered. Like somebody almost knocked his kidneys through his spine and out his uniform. And he came back in and did that. He's so freaking tough. My God. So there's that. Also at the end there, faith, very important to him. I think that the nice thing about, I think, without speaking for any other players that I don't know much about at all or anything, but I think like CJ and Tank being super, super tight, and like CJ, not look, and I'm no teetotaler, okay. CJ doesn't drink or smoke. I don't know what Tank's status is, but I like that he hangs out with CJ so much. As I get older and older, and I knew this at the time, like I would just generally abstain from alcohol during the season as much as possible. And but still, like the guys that never touch an ounce, there's more of them these days than there used to be. Like, and that's where I get defensive on behalf of Zoomers sometimes, because when it comes to the professional athletes, at least, there are a lot of guys who are just way more. I think there are more guys who are super professional about it than there used to be. They treat it like a science, and CJ's obviously one of those people. I think Tank Dell's one of those people. I think Will Anderson's one of those people. So that part of it is they're doing just fine. Our Zoomers will be just fine. Okay, everybody. If D'Amico yells at one of them, they're not going to go into a shell or something. Next question, and I'll take your guys' questions after we get through here, because you have some very good comments. I can see on my peripheral vision already. Drew Doherty asked Tank Dell about how he feels about Bobby Slowick remaining.
It's been nothing short but amazing, man. Having Coach Slow still our OC, Coach Ben, the receiver coach, he's still here. Coach Jerry, he's still here. Everybody's just still here. Coach Gerard, everybody's just still here. You know, that's a blessing. Just to come back, especially off an injury, come back. And you got the people who trusting in you, and they're going to also keep trusting in you to stick around and still be with you, even though they could have took, higher jobs for themselves, kind of put us first, and stayed around. And it's just going to be fun, coming back with them, CJ, everybody, man. We're just going to go up a notch.
It is really cool that they got to keep not just Bobby Slowick, but Gerard Johnson and everybody else, and Ben McDaniels. Bill Lazor's coming back, as far as I know. So that whole offensive staff that was working with the receivers and the quarterbacks, they get to build on top of last year too. And I don't like to think too far down the road, but hopefully, if Bobby Slowick ever does get another job, my just hope is that they have the running game figured out by then, and that they can keep Chris Strausser, who will also have the running game figured out by then. But then B, that D'Amico is an expert in this system by the end of year 2, which I fully 100% think he's capable of. He's done so many more things already that some quarterbacks never do. I would submit that in some ways, CJ Stroud is more advanced in some aspects of the game than, say, Russell Wilson. And obviously Russell knows a lot more too, that it's going to take time for CJ Stroud to learn. But when it comes to just like understanding how to play within the system, but then also having the judgment to know when to go outside the system. And CJ's talked about this before. I think he said this is the question he would ask quarterbacks if he were interviewing them at the combine, because there's you got to have respect for the structure, but then also understand when to break structure. And it's just one of those things that I think there's so many rookies that don't even have the concept that that's something they need to be aware of. And yet CJ is working at mastering it his rookie year. So that's really cool. I remember Will Levis was on a podcast before the draft last year. Oh, it was Jordan Palmer's podcast. And they were talking to him about, when you're running like all verticals and the defense is in cover 4 or something, like that it's a really rough matchup for that you just check down. You're checking down. Don't even think about it. You're checking down. Or just some of the things that you need to do to set up the running back in the passing game. It was kind of opening Will Levis's eyes to a whole different level of game management that it didn't even look like he was even aware of it. And I know for a fact that CJ was more advanced than that coming into the NFL, and he's just been able to build on that. Oh yeah, this is supposed to be about Tank Dell, isn't it? But they're inseparable, these two. Next question that Drew Doherty, the awesome Drew Doherty, had for Tank Dell was that, noted that Tank has been in the city for a few years, having been at Houston, but does he sense that it's more optimistic amongst the fan base these days?
I say for sure that's been a blessing. I don't really call them fans, I call them supporters, man. I love it like that, man. But just me being here in college, not to say anything wrong for the other guys, but people wasn't so much worried about like the Houston Texans, and to see how the guys, me and the guys, the teammates, coaching staff, how we shifted the whole momentum, shifted the whole culture of the program. I mean, not the program, but the organization. It's been a great thing to see, going out in the city, stop at the store and people come up to you like, hey, Tank, what's up? Let me get a picture. And I know CJ got it worse, Will, Sting, Nico, everybody. I know we all feeling that love and getting that love from the city. So that's been a blessing also.
I don't know. Do you think those other guys get it like worse than Tank when he's out and about? Like, Tank's very recognizable. For one, I don't know what his skincare regimen is, and it might just be that he's 22 years old. But I've done thumbnails for all these different players through the year. I never even think of like putting Tank Dell's picture in a filter. At the risk of gushing a little too much about this, this kid's skin is incredible, and I'm not a skin guy. Except that, now I'm 49 years old. I kind of think about it more than I used to. He's like genetically perfect, except for how tiny he is. And I wonder if maybe that's when maybe people don't really like even think to recognize him because maybe they don't realize just how small he is. But he's got a distinct look about him. Everybody recognize Tank Dell more in public if you're not. My God, I wonder if people think it's like Tank Dell's little brother or something. Because he's got tiny little limbs. It's not just like, he's not like Maurice Jones-Drew little. He's tiny, and that's what makes it so impressive that he's so damn tough. Next question from Drew Doherty to Tank Dell is if he's excited about these free agency moves so far.
Oh yes, D-line stack. They've been making some crazy moves on defense. Nixon coming in, man. It's been great, man. So that's for the higher ups. I know they're gonna put the team in place to not only do what we did next year, but go further. The goal in mind, Super Bowl. So Nick and Coach, they're going to do what they got to do to get us there.
Oh, my God. All right. So, did you see, like, already that one play where he beat a bunch of dudes to the sideline? That's the stuff that you're not supposed to be able to do in the NFL. Like Tank Dell on a jet sweep has got to be terrifying to a defensive back if you're manned up on him, but you also have run responsibilities or what have you, or even if you're in zone and Tank's coming across on a jet sweep or jet motion, and you got to change everything. That's where, they popularized all this jet motion stuff 10 years ago, and it's gotten to the point now where if they have a slow guy do it, I get, like, if the Texans have a slow guy do it, I get pissed because everybody can adjust to it. They know it. They've seen it before. Maybe you catch them, maybe you don't. Like with Tank Dell, that tightens sphincters. That little dude does not move the way human beings are supposed to move. And just in all of these highlights that I've seen that we've just shown during these sound bites, he does like 3 or 4 things that usually you tell rookies like, that would have worked in college, but you're not going to get away with it in the NFL. God, I hope his fibula is strong as hell this year. Last question from Drew. It was basically just more of a statement that Tank responded to, which Drew said something like, it doesn't seem like you guys are putting any limitations on yourself.
Nah, never. The sky's the limit. We want to win it all. Last year we wanted to win it all, even when everybody counted us out. And now we know this year people know that we coming with something. They're not kind of doubting us how they did in the previous years. So, going into the off season, starting way back, we got to prepare way better than what we did. We got to go harder throughout the off season because it's going to be harder in the season because they know what we can bring to the table now. So everybody going to want to beat the Texans.
Man. I don't know, man. I shouldn't have watched this. I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight. That's the Texans averaged 7 points fewer per game without Tank Dell. You go into that playoff game, and they were running on fumes in a little bit, and which is what happens when it's a team that's got limited depth. I think right now, depending on whether or not they land, the next would be Keenan Allen. I don't know who that would be right now out there right now, other than maybe Tyler Boyd. But like that, Tyler Boyd might be like one old guy risk too many for me, because it looked like between the injuries and some of the fall off in play last year, I don't know. But if they're looking for a slot, either in free agency or in the draft or via trade, and those guys can stay healthy, that's a scary scenario, because that's not like human beings don't move that. Like, I don't know how you prepare like for that. That's like preparing for Aroldis Chapman fastball. You're like, oh yeah, I'll just dial back in my brain all the other 103 mile per hour fastballs I've seen and just go off of that. Like, you don't necessarily know how to prepare for Tank Dell and the way he moves like that. So that's good.